desert sun rises over the Dead Sea. All seems empty and alone. Yet high in the caves on its northern shore are hidden secrets, the secrets of the Dead Sea Scrolls.
The setting for our story is the Judean desert, an area barren and desolate, receiving only 2 inches of rainfall a year. And yet in an area like this, God chose to test his choice servants. It was in an area like this that Abraham had come and was tested by God concerning his faith. Into this area came Joshua and the children of Israel. Into this area, David fled from King Saul. Through this area, Elijah and Elisha and the school of the prophets worked out their faith. And not far from here, John the Baptizer came, taking those of Israel who were repentant toward the coming of the Messiah and baptizing them in the Jordan River. And so it was some 2,300 years ago that the Qumran community began in this area, so filled with apocalyptic promise to wait for the coming of the Messiah.
Our story begins beside the Dead Sea, the lowest spot on earth. Its terrain is rugged, desert, with limestone cliffs jutting dramatically upward. The community of Jews that settled on its shores identified themselves with those first Israelites whose habitation was the desert, and who under Moses had experienced the very presence of God in their camp. They chose to continue the holy desert life of their ancestors because they believed the time of Israel's restoration was at hand. As Isaiah the prophet had predicted, a voice crying in the wilderness, "Prepare the way of the Lord." Some scholars have seen this community lasting for as long as 300 years. Their end came when the Romans invaded their settlement, an attack that climaxed with the destruction of the holy city of Jerusalem some 2 years later, the terrible burning of its temple, and the removal of its sacred treasures. However, before the Roman enemy could take their treasures, the Dead Sea community secretly hid away their priceless scrolls in caves. In modern times, the Judean desert became the home of nomadic Bedouin. In the area of Ein Feshka in Qumran, the Ta'amera Bedouin tribe tended their flocks and herds. After 2,000 years, members of this tribe would be the first to rediscover the scrolls.
This cave on the northwestern shores of the Dead Sea yielded the first of the Dead Sea Scroll discoveries. From this cave came 7 intact documents, some of the most valuable among all the discoveries. Out of this cave came the 2 copies of the book of Isaiah, the Manual of Discipline, a sectarian document, a war scroll depicting future end-time battles, a commentary on the book of Habakkuk, a copy of Thanksgiving Psalms, and an apocryphal account based on the book of Genesis, as well as 72 fragments, 15 of which included biblical text. The discovery of this cave was first made by a young Bedouin shepherd named today Abu Daoud. He is going to reenact the story of that discovery for us.
He was with his sheep in 1935. He climbed from here. He saw this front closed. He saw just this hole. He took a rock and he threw it inside this hole. He heard that he broke a jar or pottery inside. And he climbed from this hole. He saw the jar, it was broken. After he threw the rock from outside, he climbed in this hole and he go down to the cave. He find 47 jar surrounded with this cave. He find in one jar of them 4 scrolls inside one jar.
After the discovery of Cave 1 became known, Bedouin began eagerly searching through hundreds of caves in the Qumran area.
After Abu Daoud and other Bedouins combed the craggy cliffs to the north, they came south to the slopes on the western side of the Qumran community. However, at that time, there was no identification with these caves and the Qumran community. They went into caves 4 and 5 and 6 and 7, looking for manuscript fragments. Here at cave 4, the mother lode of all the Dead Sea Scrolls were uncovered. However, no intact scroll was found. Some 15,000 fragments were uncovered, many of which are extremely important, not only for the biblical books, but also for apocryphal and pseudepigraphal studies among the Jews. Those 15,000 fragments yielded up some 800 manuscripts, a large proportion of them biblical. In this area, those fragments reveal that the Dead Sea Scroll community favored certain books. There were multiple copies of course, their Manual of Discipline, but also biblical books like Isaiah and Deuteronomy. It was from this cave that many of the manuscripts that had been unpublished for the last 40 years and caused quite a sensation were uncovered. Among them, the Son of God text and the 4QMMT, the Works of the Law. The ruins of the Qumran community lie at the Wadi Qumran. At the end of the 19th century and the beginning of the 20th century, explorers looked at the site, but no identification was made. That identification was to wait until 1951, when Lancaster Harding and Roland DeVoe began work at this site.
Explorers continued looking for more scrolls. Then, to the north, a new cave was discovered.
In the same area as Cave 1 was this cave, designated now Cave 11. From Cave 11 were brought other documents, such as a scroll of Leviticus written in Paleo-Hebrew script, the ancient Hebrew writing, a Targum or interpretation of Job, a Psalm scroll, and perhaps one of the most valuable of all the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Temple Scroll. The Temple Scroll was larger than any of the Dead Sea Scrolls, and it contained a minute description of the temple that the Qumran community envisioned building in the future. It was originally probably written somewhere around the 2nd century BC. Now this cave was originally found, so is claimed, by Abu Daud, the Bedouin shepherd, and he comes to tell his story of that discovery.
We came into this cave